The latest Eddsworld video is called Tales of Terror, and I think it might be the best eddisode in years. Eddsworld's Tales of Terror is not funny. There are some fun animation details, but it isn't trying to be a comedy. This episode is an exercise in horror storytelling. Some people hate it, and I think that's okay. Horror isn't really my thing usually, but everything from the ideas to the tone to the music to the animation is just perfect. But is there a deeper meaning to it all? Honestly, I get the sense that the writers just wanted to tell some spooky stories with Eddsworld characters, but I've seen a lot of people trying to unpack this thing and find meaning in it all. So just this once, I want to go through this video and talk about why it works so well for me and figure out what each segment is trying to do. This is just my interpretation and everybody is going to bring something different to the table, so I want to hear your own analysis down below. I love reading your comments and I'm sure you guys will have a lot to say about this one, so now's your chance. Self-reflection is probably the creepiest of the three stories to me. I was deeply afraid of mirror mazes as a kid, and I don't need to tell you that entrapment is just a terrifying concept. The story also kind of mirrors the Greek tale of Narcissus, the mythical figure who got so lost in the beauty of his own reflection that he wasted away. Greek tragedies are often overwhelmingly dark, so I'm happy to see this idea represented so horrifically. Okay, while I was writing this script, episode writer Kaz posted a fantastic thread about the production of this video and the inspiration behind each short, and it turns out that self-reflection was partially inspired by the story of Narcissus. I'll leave a link to the thread right at the top of the description. You should absolutely give it a read through, it's a wonderful bit of insight. My favourite part of this segment though is the inclusion of Ed right at the end. Matt's only way of escape appears to be trading places with somebody else. So in this moment, he's either completely willing to sacrifice his friend for a taste of freedom, or even more horrifically, he's about to sacrifice Ed and he doesn't even realise it. Footage not found is Tom's story. He finds a camera in the middle of nowhere and loses all of his life savings. Then he uses the camera to make a movie and it turns out to be so bad that it brings about Armageddon. Wait, nope, that's a different episode. This story can be interpreted in a couple of ways. Either the camera sees the future and Tom doesn't like what he sees, or it could be that the camera itself is bringing about misfortune and Tom doesn't know how to handle that kind of responsibility. It reminds me a lot of the story of the monkey's paw, a famous and very dark horror story about getting exactly what you wish for. The actual power of the eponymous paw is somewhat ambiguous in the story, but as misfortune befalls the main character, it's his paranoia that brings about the tragic final sting in the story's closing moments. Likewise, Tom's paranoia causes him to flee the scene in a state of panic, and well, we all know what happens next. Ed's world, stylized as two words in Ed's handwriting, is dripping with paranoia, and the horror comes from so many places. It's partially about the horror of repetition, of doing the same thing over and over again, of repetition, of doing the same thing over and over again. Time loop stories have always been slightly existentially terrifying to me, and surprise surprise, Groundhog Day was one of the inspirations behind the segment. The ultimate horror though comes from Ed realizing that he is nothing more than an animated cartoon. In spite of his best efforts to break free from this purgatory, there is literally nothing he can do to escape the influence of his uncaring animator. And at the very end, his story is put on loop, forcing Ed to live out that same sequence again and again for as long as his animator wishes. This is basically what I imagine when I hear phrases like Lovecraftian or cosmic horror. As far as I understand it, and I'm certainly not an expert in this field, cosmic horror is about coming face to face with forces so incomprehensibly massive that their presence can drive you to despair and madness. Beings in eldritch horror are so much more powerful than humans that you might as well be an earthworm at their feet. They have limitless control over your fate, and they probably don't even care. I've never seen animation do anything like this. Ed might be conscious here, but he's nothing more than a drawing. He knows it, he hates it, and he can't do anything about it. All three tales feature high-concept supernatural elements, but at their core you've got a story about self-obsession bringing about isolation and pain onto someone you hold dear, a story about having responsibility over a tool more powerful than oneself and still feeling powerless in the face of it, and a story about being trapped in mundanity, ultimately realizing that your life is controlled by a higher power that doesn't care for your well-being. All very relatable and human anxieties. Hell, if someone forced me to make a horror movie about what being a YouTuber is, I'd probably end up tackling these exact themes. That YouTube algorithm is a kind of eldritch horror in its own ways. I want to stress that these are the themes that I noticed in Tales of Terror. Different viewers will enter each story with different contexts and draw conclusions that are completely counter to my own. There's just a lot left up to interpretation. Right now, I would say that Tales of Terror is my favourite episode of Eddsworld Beyond, up there with Casting Call and classics like Santa Claus 3 and The Lunatics. I have absolutely no idea what to expect next, and I couldn't be happier.